Hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Francisco Cantu, and just as I am every week, I am back on another Monday evening live stream. Right now, I'm live on on Facebook and YouTube, as I am on Mondays. Tomorrow, I will be live on TikTok and Instagram. And if this is your first time joining, let me tell you a little bit about what these live streams are, what I do, what you can expect for the next 45 minutes, and then we can get started with the presentation and start giving you all that helpful information that you come here week to week for. All right, so if you want to let me know in the chat where you are watching us from and whether you are a parent or a student, that would be very helpful. But with that being said, let me go ahead and get started with some quick announcements. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that we are, as I mentioned earlier, having these live streams every Monday at 7:15. Today I started a little bit early on Facebook and YouTube, and then on Tuesdays it's on Instagram and TikTok. All right, so that's the first thing that I want to share. Again, if this is your first time joining, what I do is I prepare a quick presentation, and I try to keep it very relevant to whatever is going on in the world of college admission. So for example, if it's the months of October, certainly October 1st, then I will talk more about the FAFSA or the CSS profile, which are all important forms that need to be filled out during those times. If it's the summer, I will talk about extracurriculars. So I try to keep all the information that I share and the topics of the presentations, again, pertinent to whatever is going on. And then after I do the quick presentation, I go ahead and I scroll back up the chat on both Facebook and YouTube, and I do a Q&A session. So you can think of these as office hours. I know that the national average of high school college counselors per student in the United States is one counselor for every 408 students. So in the majority of cases, and in a lot of the situations in which we get messages on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, we hear stories of parents who want to get a hold of the high school college counselor, but they don't respond or they don't have availability until a few weeks from now. So being fully aware of that being a problem and that being the situation many parents and students face, that's why I go live every week for an hour on Instagram and TikTok and an hour on Facebook and YouTube. And then we do these in Spanish as well at 6 p.m. So the reason why we do these live streams, again, is to hopefully give you that information or answer those questions that you might want to get from your high school counselor, but that you can't get on that face-to-face time because they're so busy. So I do encourage you to ask questions, make the chat as dynamic as possible, and I will be answering those questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so I start with the presentation, with the live stream, with the slide deck that I prepared, and then in the tail end, I will answer some questions. But just so that you know, I can share those questions and I can see them right now. So for example, I see that Minhal is asking how to get scholarships on Harvard. Please guide me properly. Perfect. So coincidentally enough, the topic of today's presentation is how to improve your financial aid package. So your question has to do with scholarships and the financing process. So throughout the presentation, I'm going to be sharing important information that's relevant to the financing aspect of a college education. Not so much about acceptances and admissions, but rather about the scholarship process, all right? If you do want to learn more about the other aspects that don't have to do with scholarships, but that focus on increasing odds of acceptance, extracurricular activities, academics, all that stuff, I do have a presentation in the description below this video. So it's a free training on the 6 strategies to get accepted to college with scholarships. So again, today's presentation, I will be talking about improving a financial aid award package. But let's say that you want to learn about the overall process. You can go ahead and if you're watching on YouTube, you scroll below the video, you click on show more, you go to the link that is below the video, and here you can register for the free webinar, the 6 steps to go to college with scholarships. You just put in your information, you register, and that is an additional resource on top of this live stream that focuses on the whole process and not just on the financing aspect of it, all right? Because today I will be, as I mentioned earlier, talking exclusively about scholarships and about getting money for college. But thank you so much, Minhal, for your question. I will be elaborating more throughout the presentation, but this is just an example of how if you ask a question on either YouTube or Facebook, I will be sharing it with everyone and I will be answering it, and I will try to keep these live streams as dynamic as possible. So do let me know where you're watching from, whether you're a parent, a student, and what your questions are, because certainly in the Q&A portion of the presentation, I will go over all of that important information, all right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with today's presentation. All right, how to improve your financial aid package. So the first thing that I want to talk about in regards to this topic, there is a big problem in and a lot of people who say that you know, whether they are from a different country or whether they're a parent who went to college, you know, many decades ago when college wasn't as expensive, there is this big concern with the cost of tuition. And, you know, you hear about all these private schools that charge $70,000 per year, so $280,000 throughout their college careers. And it's an insurmountable amount. It's unreasonable how much these colleges can cost. Now, that is one fact that stands by itself. And another fact that stands by itself is the fact that there is so much money available for students that gets left unclaimed every year that could help bring the final cost of attendance down to college. So today's presentation, as I mentioned, is on how to improve your financial aid package, and I could not possibly talk about this without first talking about not leaving that money on the table. And I want to put some context and show you why this matters. And I see right now on Facebook that Maricel saying, I'm moms from a junior in Lakeville. Nice to have you. Thank you so much for your comment. So yeah, as I was saying, there is so much money that gets left unclaimed every year. And actually, over the weekend when I was preparing this presentation, I actually found this article that I wanted to share with you all. And it is from the National College Attainment Network. So pretty much this article from January 2022 talked about how there were $3.75 billion in Pell Grants that were unclaimed for high school class of 2021. All right, what does that mean? That was money at the federal level that was available for students that did not get claimed by students who were eligible to receive it. And then in this article, which, again, if you want to find it, is from the National College Attainment Network, it further breaks down, for example, by state, how much money was left on the table. So, for example, in Maine, there were $10 million. And you can see here, there's like a little bit of a key chart that tells you the states or by color, which states left the most money on the table. So if you see somewhere like Florida, think about it, $304 million in Pell Grants left on the table. Texas, $495 million left on the table, all right? So throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking about how to access some of this money. Again, this is just the pertinent example or the example of Pell Grants, which, as we've talked about in other live streams, if this is your first time joining us, let me just reiterate or remind you that there are 4 types of financial aid and scholarships. There's federal, there is state, there are institutional scholarships and grants, and then there are private scholarships. All right. So between federal, institutional, state, and private aid, there's a lot of money that one can access to finance their college education. So right now, again, in this particular example, we're only focusing on Pell Grants. However, there are private scholarships that don't get applicants. There are state-sponsored programs that there are students who meet the eligibility criteria as far as having the grades and the GPA and whatnot, but they don't fill out the necessary documentation to qualify for those scholarships. So the whole point, or the whole reason why I'm sharing that article with you and why I wanted to start off this presentation with you, is so that we can get away from the mentality of there's no money out there for me, or I could only receive money if my family is not well off. That's actually one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear whenever parents or students come and approach me. One of the biggest misconceptions that I'm sure you have heard is that you only get scholarships if your family is not financially well off, and that you have to have a lot of financial need at the household level. In other words, your parents have to not necessarily make the most money for you to qualify for scholarships. And what that does is it negates the whole concept of merit-based awards, which we're going to be talking about later on. All right. So if you are going to remember anything from this presentation, remember that there is money out there for you. It's just a matter of filling out the necessary documentation and being on top of deadlines and eligibility criteria. All right. And we're going to be talking about that more later on. But I just wanted to establish the foundation and set the basis for the following tips. All right. So now that we know that there's money on the table, and we went over the example of the $3.75 billion that are left in Pell Grants every year. Again, if you want to see the article that I shared earlier, you can search it at the National College Attainment Network. Let's move on to, this slide is pretty much what I just explained. I just didn't share the slide. It's 1.7 million students didn't fill out the FAFSA, which is a little bit of a tease as to what we're going to be talking about later. The FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, which is simply a form at the federal level, which a student or a parent, which they fill out in order to display or assess their family's financial makeup, and then different institutions, whether it's at the federal level or at the school level or even at the state level, they can get, again, based on that financial makeup of your household determined by the FAFSA, they can make decisions as to how much scholarships or whether or not they qualify for special types of scholarships. All right. So what I wanted to share and what I talked about or what I hinted at earlier is that the highest Pell Grant award in 2023 and 2024 was $7,395, which, again, if you multiply by 4 years, is almost $30,000 that you could get just from, again, I'm talking about Pell Grants just to give you an example of one of the types of money that gets left on the table every year. But you might be wondering, okay, that's great. That's $30,000 that students could be eligible to receive that they're not receiving or that they're not claiming. How do I go about receiving this award, or how do I go about actually earning this money? And with that being said, let's move on to the how. The how do you qualify, or how do you make yourself eligible for not just this, but many of the other sorts of awards? And the first step, and the easiest way in terms of cost benefit, in terms of what you have to put in for the potential rewards, is to fill out the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It opens up October 1st every year, and it should be filled out every year before a student will be attending college. So starting senior year of high school, because that is the first year for which the student will be attending college the following year. And then it goes all the way to typically junior year of college. Because for senior year of high school, you fill out the FAFSA for the following freshman year of college. Then freshman year of college, you fill it out for your sophomore year of college. Sophomore year of college, you fill it out for your junior. Junior, you fill out for senior year of college. And then once you're a senior in college, you don't have to fill it out, because in most cases, you will not be attending college the following year. All right. So why is this so important? Well, number one, as I was talking about earlier, the cost-benefit analysis sort of thing, it could take you as little as 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Our students inside Best College Aid, they get a step-by-step tutorial on how to fill it out, and we answer their questions along the way. But let's say you're starting completely from scratch. You don't know anything. You have to Google everything. You have to compile your tax returns. You are so lost. Even in those particular cases, the 1, the 2, the 3 days of work, it takes you a week. You're really figuring out. You're so lost. It takes you 2 weeks to fill it out. Well, just with qualifying for those Pell Grants alone that I talked about, I mean, 1 week of work at most, which again, I'm really exaggerating in how long that would take you. It wouldn't take you a week, but let's say it does take you a week. 1 week of work for something that throughout 4 years could give you $30,000 again just on the Pell Grants. I think it's very much worth it. And in the worst case, let's say that you really are a pessimist and that you don't believe that you're going to get any sort of financial aid or scholarship unlocked through the FAFSA. Well, it's not like college is going to be, it's not like they're going to charge you more for filling out the FAFSA in the first place. Like, there's really no risk in completing this form. And as a matter of fact, as I said earlier a little bit, but I really want to reiterate this, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, does not only unlock money, scholarships, grants, or healthy loans for students with demonstrated need, okay? You don't have to be of a lower income family to qualify for all of the aid and scholarships that the FAFSA awards. Yes, there is a lot of need-based awards, or there are a lot of need-based awards that get given out through the FAFSA. I'm not saying that's not the case. What I am saying, though, is that there are merit-based awards that are derived from your students' academic performance, from your students' extracurriculars, from the students' standardized test scores, leadership positions, volunteering experience, all those things that can only be given out by the institution or by the state. For example, in Florida, there is Florida Bright Futures that has a prerequisite of a certain or a minimum GPA score and standardized test scores for you to qualify for those awards. Well, that is merit. You earned those awards based on your academic performance. But if you do not fill out the FAFSA, then you're not going to receive those awards. So if you automatically or by default assume that, oh, my family's too well off, there's no point in me filling out the FAFSA, despite me being an excellent student. Well, if that's the case and that's the thought process, you're self-disqualifying from receiving those awards and you are leaving money on the table. So again, yes, if you have financial need, the FAFSA could be great, especially we're going to talk later on about how to mix your financial need with an adequate college search that is derived from generous institutions. But it's not just based on need. Again, if you have merit, you could earn scholarships and money, but for that, typically you would have to fill out these necessary forms, all right? I know that I say this every week, but I rather overstate it, and you know what I'm talking about, and you learn this, and you, once October 1st hits, you know that you have to fill out those forms, than for me to just quickly go over it, you forget about it, and then it's time to pay for freshman year of college, and oh surprise, you realize you can't afford it, right? So yeah, that's what I want to share. So first thing is make sure you fill out the FAFSA. Third, the CSS profile. CSS profile, I know a lot of people know what the FAFSA is. Again, free application, federal student aid. It's at the federal level, although it also could complement or work to unlock institutional and state awards. There is another form that not every institution requires, but that it could certainly be required by some of the schools in your students' list of colleges, and that is called the CSS profile. And for the CSS profile, it is the same concept as the FAFSA. It is a form that you fill out. It's a little bit more comprehensive and it's a little bit more extensive than the FAFSA. It asks for a little bit more information, but you fill it out and the institution assesses your family's financial makeup, and based on this information, they can make decisions as to the award packages that they should be offering to you, or they get a better idea of the financial demographics of their student population. And in a lot of cases, those schools, if they require the CSS profile, you are not eligible to receive financial aid and scholarships unless you fill it out. So it's another form that, if required, has to be filled out starting October 1st. And you want to make sure that you fill it out as soon as possible. The FAFSA and the CSS profile, if the forms become available October 1st, you want to fill them out October 1st, because a lot of the money that gets unlocked through these forms gets handed out, delivered, attributed, allocated on a first come, first served basis. So if you are going to spend the time that you are going to spend on filling these forms out, you might as well do it early on. If it's going to take an hour and a half, you want to take that hour and a half on October 1st rather than on February 7th. Okay. So that's just a standard practice. That's what we teach our students inside Best College Aid. And that's usually what gives or maximizes the potential yields or the potential highest returns. All right. So FAFSA, CSS profile, October 1st, fill those out. All right. Those are the easiest ways to not leave money on the table. All right. So as I talked about earlier, what happens if you do not have financial need? What happens if you fill out the FAFSA, the CSS profile, and you realize that they're not assessing any demonstrated need from your household? All right. Well, as I mentioned, merit-based scholarship. So what I'm going to talk about right now in terms of merit-based scholarships, now I'm going to elaborate more on the whole concept of finding generous institutions. All right. I already talked about having good test scores, good GPA, good extracurriculars, because those could be conducive to earning merit-based scholarships. But now I want to talk about a strategy which we use inside Best College Aid, and it is one of the main foundations or pillars for all of our members to have success. So I want to share with you pretty much the importance of, number one, understanding that not all schools are equally as generous. Not all schools are going to give out the same institutional awards than others. Not all schools are going to have the same extracurricular programs or the same packages, grants, institutional awards that they give out to their students. So what's the step here, or what's the process here? Well, here's what we teach our students. We tell them, okay, I want you to sit down and visualize what your perfect college experience would look like. And I want you to imagine, yes, what you want to study, probably the most important thing. You don't want to go to a university and realize that they don't offer the career paths that you want to pursue. That defeats the purpose of going to get a higher education. So start off with what you want to study. If you have any preferences as far as geographic location, do you want it to be a big SEC school, a big ACC basketball school? Do you want it to be located in a specific geographic region? Do you want it to be a big public school? For example, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill because I wanted to get that mixture of great academics with a renowned business program, with big sports culture, big on basketball. You know, this year was a down year, but still, Carolina basketball, a great selling factor for me. It was located close enough to Florida, my home, that I could, take a quick flight. And those were the search parameters that worked for me. All right. In your particular student situation, it might be different. They might need a university that has a strong journalism program, or they don't really care about sports. They care more about having a close-knit community, and a small private college might be better for them. So whatever this list of non-negotiables are, you are also going to add an extra layer. And that extra layer is going to be based on what percentage of your demonstrated need do you need the university to satisfy? In other words, how much is your college experience and whether or not it happens going to depend on whether or not you get scholarships? And if your answer is, as in most cases is for almost everyone, very, very high, like money and scholarships is very, very important for me to realize my dreams or to make them happen, then what we teach our students is to use search engine tools. In particular, in Best College Aid, we use the College Board search engine tool to set parameters that, yes, satisfy all that other criteria, the academics, the extracurriculars, the geographic location, whether or not it has a study abroad program, everything. But also that you make sure that it satisfies above whatever percentage of demonstrated need that you might have, whether that's 80%, 85%, 90%, 95%. And that's how you find schools that are generous. And if you find schools that are generous and you make a list of 8 to 12 schools divided between reach, target, and safety schools, then all of a sudden, all of the schools that you're applying to are going to offer you generous financial aid award packages. And if you're only being offered generous financial aid award packages, then you are going to be able to compare and negotiate and find whatever is the best deal for you. Now, it is also important to know that while a lot of what I mentioned has to do with demonstrated need, in other words, how much money the parents make, there is a way in which the filters that you find that the schools are generous in terms of how much money they give out based on, whether or not your student is going to be an athlete, or whether institutional awards are merit based in terms of whether they give leadership scholarships, whether they give volunteering scholarships. Okay, so understanding the way in which not all schools are equally as generous and using that to your advantage to only select generous schools is the best way, on top of filling out all the necessary documentation and applying to private scholarships, to make sure that between federal, institutional, state, and private aid, you cover your bases so that you're not leaving money on the table, which was the reason why I started with that statistic of the $3.75 billion left every year. I wanted to start with that because by making yourself as eligible as possible for all these different types of awards, then you're really doing yourself a favor and you are really setting yourself up for success in terms of the potential streams of income towards paying your education, and then your negotiating power with one school over the other, and your options become all of a sudden wider. But if you don't do this, if you wait to fill out the FAFSA or the CSS profile until the tail end of their deadlines, or you don't fill them out at all, and you don't apply to private scholarships, and you apply to, or your student applies to a big state school that is not known for being generous, but all of their friends are applying to that school, so they have to apply even though it doesn't even offer what they want to study. Well, if you're doing that, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because number one, they're not going to have the academic programs you want, or they might not. They might not. Again, but that was not your main criteria for applying to those schools. If your student applies to those schools, then they're not going to get competitive financial aid award packages, and they might either have to drop out or not enroll and get all excited because they get accepted and then not enroll because they can't afford it. Or if they do enroll, they have to take out predatory loans with high interest rates that are not subsidized. So you dig yourself into a hole. But if you start with anticipation and you build out a list of generous schools, that your whole list of reach, target, and safety schools is made up of generous universities, for which you make sure you fill out the necessary documentation starting October 1st, and you also complement it with private scholarships, you are set up very differently than if you don't do all those other things, right? So you want to set yourself up for success, all right? So that was pretty much everything that I had prepared in terms of the presentation. Now, I want to talk to you all about, so two things. If you came in late, or if I went over all this information very, very quickly, I am going to do the Q&A portion of this presentation. I know I have some questions on both Facebook and YouTube. So any of you haven't already asked your questions, go ahead and ask them right now. I'm going to start reading them and sharing them and do my Q&A office hours right now. But while you type out your questions, number one, this live stream will be posted. It's recorded, and it will be posted on the YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. So all you have to do is go to Best College Aid USA on both YouTube and Facebook, and you're going to see the recording of this presentation. Again, if there was any tidbit of information that you didn't get to write down, but you know that is valuable, you can go ahead and rewatch it. Number two, if you have not already done so, and as I mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation, so today and in this presentation, I talked about financials. I talked about scholarships. I talked about the ways in which you fill out the necessary documentation to qualify for federal, institutional, and state aid scholarships, as well as supplementing that with private scholarships. And for private scholarships, there are all sorts of search engines, Scholly, FastWeb, the College Board search engine tool. But if instead of focusing just on the financial aspect of it, and yes, we do have live streams every week, and in a few live streams from now, I might be talking about admissions or extracurriculars, but because we got a lot of DMs and questions after the live was over or during the lives that asked us about topics that were not necessarily related to the main focus of today's conversation, how to improve your financial aid package in this particular situation. We made a presentation, so I recorded David and Laura, who do the Spanish live streams and who are some of the other advisors in Best College Aid that helped me edit it. And we have a free presentation that is called The 6 Steps to Go to College with Scholarships. So, for example, if you go to the YouTube video where I'm live right now and you go to the free training button under the video, the show more button, and right under where it says free training, you click on it, you get to this landing page for the presentation, you register for it, and you put your name, email, phone, register for the presentation, and it's shorter or just as long as this live stream was, but instead of focusing on only scholarships, we talk about everything from the classes that you should be taking in middle school and high school, academics, extracurriculars, building out the college application, writing your essay. So it's not just, okay, this is how you pay for college, but rather this is how you even get accepted to college, all right? So that is a free presentation that is in the link below this video. So you can register for that for free. And I am going to go to the Q&A portion of this presentation in just a second. Again, keep on asking your questions. But I also want to talk to you because I like to be very transparent. And the sponsor of this video and the reason why we're able to do this live streams and come on every week and share advice and do my office hours and everything is because of the full paid Best College Aid program. And our members who are part of this program, they get online personalized advice that is not just limited to this 1 hour that we have with the general public, but rather on demand, unlimited online support. We have a online course that goes over every single step of the process. We have a guide that is included inside the Best College Aid course. So right now I'm holding it right now, and it tells you every month of every year of high school what you should be doing in order to be on track and on top of the college application process. And then this skeleton or blueprint is complemented by, okay, let's say it's freshman year and it is March or April or whatever. This is what you should be doing. Okay, that gets complemented or supplemented by the lesson inside the course. But oh wait, you are having this specific situation in which you don't know what classes to take, or you have this question about filling out a financial aid form, or whatever the case might be, then you have access to me and the rest of the advisors in the team. You have access to a online community of all the 1,000+ members on Facebook. You have access to special discounts on crash course books like these ones. All of our members, they get a free study guide for Kaplan for the ACT and a free ACT study account. And again, these are just our samples that we have here in the office, but all of our students get those materials online. And it is because of this program that I'm able to come here every week. Again, so if you are interested, let's say you watch this live stream and you got a lot of value, like for example, Maribel is saying, thank you for all the information. It's super helpful for me. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad that it's being helpful. If you want to learn even more free content, check out the free presentation. And then at the end of that presentation, again, I'm sharing this because I'd rather be transparent and tell you about our full pay program upfront, that you're going to get to an offer at the last 15 minutes of that free presentation, 60% off for the spring break sale. But even if you're not interested, you get a free presentation, just as much value, if not more than the value that I've given for the last 36 minutes. You would get that in the free presentation in the link below this video. But at the end, do know that there is a link to a special 60% off spring break sale, all right? So I just wanted to get that out of the way before I got to the Q&A portion of this presentation. I'm going to do some questions right now, but I did want to, again, share with you all some of the benefits and what is included inside Best College Aid, and invite you all. There's no risk to just sign up for that free presentation and thank the Best College Aid program, full pay program, for sponsoring this live streams. All right. now that I've done that and that we have gotten that out of the way, let me see if I can answer some of the questions. All right. So Minhal asked how to get scholarships to Harvard. Please guide me properly. All right. So not just with Harvard, but with any institution, I always recommend starting by looking at that university's something called Common Data Set. So if you Google Harvard Common Data Set, or you can insert any university, any name of any university. You can put the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Common Data Set. You will find a PDF, and you want to get the PDF from the latest admitted student class, so the most recent freshman class. And that document will show you all of the statistics from the latest admitted student class. So instead of just telling you, let me go ahead and just show you the most comprehensive way of doing this. So for example, if I look up UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, Common Data Set, and I go to this Common Data Set for 2021, 2022, it takes me to this PDF, and in this PDF, I can see statistics. For example, if I scroll down here, give me 1 second. So for example, it tells me information about, okay, the how many of the undergraduates are men, how many are women. So it gives me like demographic statistics. It tells me about their demographic makeup, Hispanic, Black, White, American, all that stuff. However, if I go a little bit further down, I believe it's on page. Every university is going to have a different layout for this Common Data Set. Also, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I hope that I'm zooming in enough. I hope that it's zoomed in enough. Let me know in the chat if you can actually see what I'm sharing, because I don't want it to look too small and for me to just be sharing illegible stuff. But pretty much when you go to the section of what they consider important when evaluating students, oh, here it is. I was looking for the zoom in button. All right, this should make it better. Okay, perfect. So, can you see it better now? Can you let me know in the chat if you can see it now? I think it should be better. All right. So, just to give you an example for this, the University of Pennsylvania, you will be able to see that in this particular example, out of all of the academic components of a student, rigor of secondary school record, in other words, the classes that they take, are they regular, honors, or AP? Oh, what's their class rank? Oh, academic GPA. What did they get in the SAT or ACT? The essays, the recommendation letters. It tells you out of each factor, okay, this is very important. So taking hard classes is very important. Class rank, it's important, but maybe not as much as the GPA or SAT or ACTs, right? So every school is going to have different qualifications or degrees of importance for each of the components, right? So you want to make sure that if you want to apply to a specific school and you know exactly what school you want to go to, that you are in tip-top shape in those particular areas. And then it does the same thing with non-academic components. So like the college interview, extracurriculars. You can see in this particular example, they're important, but they're not as important as character and personal qualities. You can see, for example, here that religion or religious affiliation is not important at all. And these other elements are considered, but not nearly as important. All right. So if you do that with every school, and you can go down and you're going to be able to see for example, the average GPA or SAT or ACT scores required from a school. And yeah, to answer your question concretely, I would always start with a common data set. And that's only if you know that you want to go to a particular school. But before that, I would take a step back and make a list of schools that is made up of safety, reach target and safety schools that meet all of your criteria, and then look at each of those schools in the common data set and see what you have to do to be a competitive applicant for each of them. All right, that's where I would start. That's an overview. If you want to learn more, check out the presentation below this video, because we go over this whole process. Right now, I'm just answering a question on the fly, but I go over it in a more structured way in the presentation below this video. All right. Let's see. Another comment. Melissa asked, is the CSS profile filled out on the university website? So for the CSS profile, the easiest way I would do it is through the College Board, all right? So collegeboard.org, and then that should give you all the information to filling it out. And I would first off look to see if the university that you're thinking of or applying to in particular even requires it. And if it does, then go through the College Board website, all right? That's how you would go about that. Maricel is saying, thank you for all the information. It's very helpful to me. And then she said, it's too small, but then that they could see it. All right, so that's in regard to the common data set. So I believe that's all the questions that I got asked on either YouTube or Facebook. This video or this live stream will be posted. The recording of it will be posted on both YouTube and Facebook. I very much encourage you, if you have not already done so, to go to the See More button below this video on YouTube and the description on Facebook and check out that free presentation that we have. It's, again, if you got value from this live stream, you're going to get more value from that free presentation. And do know that we are having that special 60% off sale for spring break on the full paid program for Best College Aid. Again, these live streams are just 1 hour of my time that I hope it's very valuable to you, and I hope you learned a lot. But if you want to get more than that and get unlimited online support, advising, access to way more information and some more personalized, again, advice and something that's pertinent to your situation, then it would be my absolute pleasure for you to consider joining Best College Aid. But check out that free presentation first, see what we're all about, and then you can take advantage of this special sale, all right? Thank you so much for joining me. An absolute pleasure every week. I will be back here tomorrow on Instagram and TikTok, and back here on YouTube and Facebook next Monday. So I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day and happy Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye-bye, y'all.